Hey, Cedric here, and I'm coming at you with something a little different. I'm going to, for my own sanity and maybe for yours, I'm going to start doing kind of an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting here on my YouTube channel. It's for me, talk about things. I'll try and think of a topic for each one, and if you have an idea for a topic, you can message me. You don't have to, the idea is anonymity. So I thought we could spend time together, and maybe you don't have time to get to a meeting, or maybe it's difficult for you starting out going to a meeting or something, but I thought that we could talk about this. So I'm going to do my best to operate this like the structure of a normal meeting would be. And forgive me, it'll be bumpy at first, but I hope to get smoother at it. So, hello. This is the first of the regular, what's a good name for it? YouTube Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. My name is Cedric, and I am an alcoholic. As well as many other things. I've been an addict, criminal. So, let's open the meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. Alright. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's a good prayer. Now, if you have a problem with the idea of God, just think of something larger than yourself. Whatever makes sense. Start there. Because I myself sometimes have a problem with the idea of God. Let's just do our best to be spiritual. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We're self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. This, I'm not officially, there, allied with AA, but I'm also not taking donations. We're not sending anything in. This is free. No ads. I am now going to read from Chapter 5, how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. As some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol or drugs. Cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help it is too much for us, but there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. We admitted that we were powerless over alcohol or our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God, as we understood Him, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings, made a list of all persons we had harmed, and became willing to make amends to them all. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Now that includes you as well. If it injures you, it's injurious. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A. That we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B. That probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C. That God could and would if He were sought. Okay. Firstly, I'll start with, I am not going to rigidly adhere to the problems of alcoholism, because addiction is addiction. The substance is merely a vehicle to allow that addiction to hold sway. Okay? It may be gambling. Your addiction may be cocaine, methamphetamines, cigarettes, eating, or alcohol. My main problem was alcohol, and secondary to that were other addictions, that I picked up along the way. That's the first part I want to address. So I'm not going to be an AA purist where it's only about alcohol. I'd like us to be able to discuss our addictions, and again, you can message me if you have a topic that you would like discussed. Please feel free to message me or email me. The next part that I would like to address, when I speak of God, our biggest idea of God, I think, is of course, as Americans here, the Christian God. Okay? Now, I have some issues myself with believing in the idea of an entirely benevolent and protective God, because I've seen what the world does to children and animals. I've seen what people do, and I have trouble believing that a benevolent God would allow these things to happen. I do, however, have belief in power greater than myself. I believe that there is a God. I believe that there is some governing force. Okay? And I don't say this to offend anyone, because I will not down you for your perception of God, or lack of perception of God, okay? All I ask is that you grant me that same courtesy. So, you don't have to have any fixed perception of God to be a part of this. Onward. Well, I suppose the first thing that I should do is talk a little bit about myself and my alcoholism, my story. That's a good first step for us to maybe find common ground. I come from a long line of alcoholics. Violent man are the norm in my family. So I was raised with alcohol, drugs, and violence. It just is what it is. Well, my first taste of drugs and alcohol, I was in utero, I was in the womb. So, there's where it started, I suppose, but not where it ended. We'll jump ahead and to where alcohol really began to hold sway. I grew up here as a teenager in the state system. I went to different places, foster care homes, halfway houses, and even the juvenile DOC, the Department of Juvenile Corrections. I spent quite a bit of time there, years. When I got out and I ended up on the street, I discovered the joys of alcohol. And I don't remember eating much when I lived on the street for that last year, between when I was 17 to 18, or 16 to 18. But I remember drinking a lot. And I remember blacking out, and I remember a lot of fights, a lot of violence. It started out where I would drink and I would feel good. I would feel personable. I would be able to talk and laugh. But that didn't last. It wasn't that long before the alcohol was turning me into someone else. And I think that's what addiction is all about for many people, is trying to be someone else for a little while, to just forget. That's what it was for me anyway. So, I went through a year of drinking and living on the streets and getting in fights and sometimes crashing at people's houses, and it was just kind of like a parade of low-life behavior. Fighting, stealing, drinking, just being a general thug. And when I turned 18, I tried to make a change, and I went across country and moved to Toledo, Ohio. Tried to be there, but there's just too much history, I can't trust my family, and I guess my family can't trust me, So that's what happens. That's what happens. You kick a dog enough, and then eventually the dog's just gonna bite. And I just never stopped biting, I guess. So I ended up coming back to Arizona less than a year, and lived on the street again and started drinking again. I had stopped drinking. Don't even ask me how, I just did. But I started drinking right away when I got back here, and it went right back to where it was, because let me tell you about alcohol, okay? I had found my bottom, my rock bottom. I had found it before I turned 18, when I woke up in a neighborhood park with blood on me and a busted 40-ounce bottle next to me, St. Ides, and the neck had blood on it, my hands had blood. I wasn't cut, and I didn't remember anything. I didn't remember anything. And I thought that was bottom. I was living on the street. How much further down can you go? Well, guess what? That's the beauty of addiction, is your bottom just continually gets lower. I stopped drinking, and the next time I started drinking, I found another bottom. I went lower. I sunk deeper. There's something that the big book, that's what this is called. It's a nickname for the Alcoholics Anonymous book. And you can find these at your thrift store. You can buy them new. If you go to a meeting, there's a chance someone will loan you a copy. It says in there that alcoholism, it leads the alcoholic or the addict, your addiction will lead you to three places, alright? Death, institutions, or jail. Death, insanity, or lockdown. And that's true. It's led me to all those places. All those places. Yeah. We'll get into the death part of that another time. Where was I? Started drinking again. I was 18 years old, and I started drinking again, just drinking really heavy, and I started finding new bottoms. I lost a job, and that wasn't as bad as it got. I was homeless again. Then I got a job, saved up, got a little studio apartment, utilities included, and I just kept drinking. But I was to the point where I didn't drink less than a 12-pack at night, and I was buying the old Milwaukee Ice because it was more bang for my buck, you know? It's the same price. I forget, I think a 12-pack then I was paying what? And I gotta say like $3.50, something like that. Can't remember, but it wasn't much, you know. But I wanted to get more plug for my buck, and it was a 12-pack a night, and I'd have to have a drink in the morning, but I would drink like just maybe a shot of hard liquor or something in the morning to kind of steady up and everything. And I didn't even think anything of it, because another thing about addiction, when that switch gets flipped, okay, and what addiction does, it hijacks that primitive brain back here, that lizard brain. You know, it's called the hindbrain. It hijacks that and makes your mind and your body believe that your drug of choice, your addiction, your gambling, your eating, that is as necessary as the air that you breathe. That's how it feels. It's a need. It's hurtful. It's like starving to death when you cannot accommodate or satiate that addiction. It hijacks you. This is science. It's not something you can just stop. It's not that simple. You need to understand that, so that if you do experience failures, you will understand that this is a difficult road that you're deciding to walk if you're deciding to try and give up your addiction, your alcohol, whatever it is. Okay? So when your addiction, when that pathway, when that reward pathway gets hijacked by your addiction, choices disappear. Alright? Positive choices disappear, and where once life was a great, intricate and unfolding peacock's tail of probabilities and choices, those begin to narrow as the addiction takes hold, and choices won't even be present. Like, you won't even be conscious that something is an option, that getting help is an option, or that not punching this person is an option. Those good choices disappear from your line of sight and from your cognizance. This is what addiction does. This is not just me. This is the truth. This is the facts. So I made bad choices, really bad choices, and I really started spiraling downwards, you know. Even though I was working, I was drinking, I was you know, I would sleep with any woman available. It just, and I had no regard for people's feelings. I never lied or acted like I wanted a relationship. And there I'm justifying, right? I'm justifying my behavior. Even still, no, there's no justification. I was a womanizer. And it wasn't anything more than superficial satiation of another primitive need, of lust. And I went about life in a bad manner, in a bad way. I went on that way for years, until I squared up and thought, hey, maybe I'll join the military, okay? Maybe I'll join the military. I mean, I had attempted suicide as a teenager, you know, living in the state system and not having a tomorrow to look forward to. I had faced death. I'd huffed air freshener in a sock. I'd huffed gasoline to flip that switch, that addiction switch. I knew it even then. It was there, you know. Trying to get away. So I had been all these places, and I thought to myself, maybe I'll join the military. And I took the ASVAB, scored a 98, you know. Was in pretty good physical shape. I wasn't smoking cigarettes, just drinking all the time. And I decided, how am I going to celebrate that I've done so well and that I'm going to have a bright future in the military? I was 22. I thought, hey, Mexico trip, you know, and then I started building this crazy ideas in my head about what I would do in Mexico, about what I would do down there, you know, that I was maybe going to go all the way to South America. and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and oh heck, you know, I'll maybe even bring back emeralds or this or that, or have crazy adventures. And I talked myself into believing all of this. And I went to Mexico, and at the border I tried to declare a pistol. There's signs up everywhere that say no firearms allowed, but I thought that means you don't sneak them in. I don't know what I thought. I wasn't thinking clearly, because a drunk doesn't think clearly. An addict does not make rational decisions. I ended up in prison in Mexico, and that is no soft thing. That is no easy thing. Prisons in America, the penal system in America it's a hard place. It's hard and harsh. Mexico was worse. I only got cleaned up. I was only cleaned up when my parents or my dad would come down there. He came down every 2 weeks, and I was surprised at that. Very surprised. Because he's I'll leave that be. Although he did bring me a lot of pain while I was in there. I remember that. I had nowhere to escape down there. He brought me a lot of pain, actually. But anyway, when I got out of there, all I wanted was to escape. And I had never really tried hard drugs. Before that, it was alcohol and marijuana when I was a teenager. But when I got out of Mexico, things that seemed just like the worst idea before, they seemed like a good idea, because I was drinking. And because I was just sliding deeper into the pit of addiction. And I started selling methamphetamines on the side while I was working graveyard shifts at a gas station. And it was very easy to become addicted to those when working a graveyard shift, when drinking nonstop, and smoking marijuana, and I fell deep into those addictions. So deep that I couldn't even see that there was something wrong with me, that I went out into the world, and from growing up in the juvenile justice system, and being in Mexico, my mind, in that prison down there, my mind is not set for social hour. I'm more like red zone all the time. So people looking at me, I didn't think, hey, they're looking at a walking skeleton, you know. So I came out of Mexico and I was skinny, I was half starved, just horrible looking, and alcohol and methamphetamines did not make that better. But I was in hate with the world, you know, walking around with a pistol in my waistband, and just crazy with it, just crazy with hatred at the world. And it went on. My addiction with methamphetamines went on for maybe a year, while I was with my ex-wife, who is my ex-wife now. She introduced me to crystal methamphetamines, and I wouldn't have fallen prey to those if I hadn't been in full swing in addiction, you know. But I did, and it was easy. It was easy to say, I'll try it once, I'll try it twice, I'll try it again. You know, I'm a little tired. I'll just take a little bump, you know, just a little gag to get me by. And next thing I know, man, I've been up like a week, and I'm just paranoid about everyone. I stuck my pistol in a guy's mouth, you know, and just flipping out. Hearing voices outside the door. I look out through the peephole and I see people out there ready to ambush me, but no one was there. I see paratroopers rappelling down into the balcony of the apartment, but no one was there. You know, no one was there. And I started getting an inkling that something was wrong, and that I should maybe try to fix this, but I didn't yet. Fast forward to maybe 6 months after being up for 7 days, and I stopped selling it. I stopped selling the methamphetamines. I didn't stop using it. and it's a big row between my wife and I, who was my wife at the time, and I threw her out. Just started drinking really heavily. Didn't even mess with the methamphetamines. I just went to the store and I bought this. It was a Vanguard brand vodka, 1.75 liter, big plastic bottles with the handle, and I bought 3 of those and just started drinking. I finished one off in less than 24 hours, you know, just drinking straight. And on like the 3rd day, she showed back up to get her stuff. I wouldn't let her in, so the police came. They ended up having to call a SWAT team. It was a big standoff, and 3 days later I come to and I'm chained up down in county jail, chained up on a metal table, naked, and I guess I had been in some kind of a fugue state. Had a couple of psychiatrists tell me that I have dissociative identity disorder. I'm not certain about that. I couldn't tell you. I know that I have some issues, post-traumatic stress disorder for certain, but I came out of it 3 days later, and apparently I had been another person, pretty wicked. Spent 3 days just raging at the chains on that table, and my wrists were just swollen and bloody, and this lady tells me, you know, you've been saying some pretty mean things, and we're not sure we should let you up. I said, well, I don't know, that wasn't me. They let me up and went to court, and I was let off because the police beat me down pretty good. So the 10 counts of assaulting officers were just kind of swept aside. Nothing was charged. What they thought about charging me with, they didn't, because of the beating that I took. Apparently it was maybe a little bit overkill or something, I don't know. But I was let out of there, and I wanted help at that point, but I didn't know that I wanted help, and I didn't know it was available, because again, the addict doesn't see, the alcoholic doesn't see that those are viable options. The help is there. You have to help yourself, and what's the easiest way to help yourself? Another drink. So that's what I did. I dived back into the drink, but that didn't last more than a few weeks, because things just unfurled quickly, and I ended up in an institution for another little binge of alcohol, another hard binge, not a little binge. And I detoxed from alcohol that time. I was in that hospital long enough, and I detoxed, and it was terrible. It was absolutely horrible. I'd been drinking so steadily that to not have that supply of alcohol, my body started processing what was in there, and it was terrible. There were times where I didn't know who I was or where I was. I had the shakes, almost seizures. It was just terrible. And that was when I went to my first AA meeting. A nurse came in and said, hey, the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting's about to start. You know, you need to go. I said, what for? I don't have a problem with alcohol. She said, what do you think you're here for? And I stopped, you know, because I thought I'm here because the police hate me. You know, I'm just a social drinker with a bad run of luck. But it made me stop and think, and I went in there, and I kid you not, I was the only one that went in there. No one else went, you know. But I started crying when the guy started talking. I started crying like a baby, because it made sense, you know, when he said that there's a better way. I didn't have to live that way anymore, that there is a better way, and there's help, there's meetings, there's people who will care about me for who I am, and that I could be around people who don't drink. And that was the start, because it was very hard for me after that to drink or do drugs with the thought that there's another way, you know, with the idea that there is another way. To know that changed the world for me. And I slowly started making my way out of that pit of despair that I had dug for myself with my addictions, my alcoholism. And I got to tell you, there's another way. You can do it. You don't have to live the way you're living. You don't have to. There's a better way. Here's a really good little visual for you about addiction, alright? And I'm going to use the blanket term addiction because that's what alcoholism is. It's an addiction to alcohol. And also an allergy. It changes your perception of the world. It changes who you are. If you have that addiction, that first drink, or that first snort, or the first shot, and the first look, or the first thought that you want to, it starts to flip that switch, okay? And your allergy kicks in, and you will not be able to stop. You have to build up your defenses against that first drink or first drug, or that first bite of food, or that first pull of the wheel or throw of the dice, whatever your addiction may be. We have to have defense against that, alright? Because once that happens, your addiction is once again in power. And here's what that addiction is doing. The whole time, even if you're not using or drinking, it's doing push-ups. And it's looking at you like, yeah, motherfucker, yeah, I'm gonna get you. You know, I'm gonna catch you slipping. I'll catch you slipping. And if you're not, if we're not working on our sobriety, all right, if we're not working on making ourselves better, okay, and these steps, these 12 steps, they work. They really work. They've worked for just hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. You know, AA hasn't kept going because it doesn't work. It does work. Your addiction's doing push-ups, man, just waiting to catch you slipping. And if you aren't doing spiritual push-ups, alright, mental push-ups, and keeping strong within some kind of a program of sobriety, then your addiction is going to be stronger than you. And when the time comes, and you do take that first drink, you know, it's in front of you, and you're now at that crossroads where you say yay or nay, there's a much greater chance of you saying yes, because your addiction has not gotten weaker, okay? And you will find a new bottom. It will get worse and worse. You will lose more and more, and one day you may look around and say, I have nothing left. That's what happened to me. That's what happened to me. There's more to my story, but I'm not going to keep laying it on you, you know. I've been in and out of jails and institutions since I was 12 years old. And my bottom keeps getting lower. And I cannot afford to find another bottom, because my next bottom might be death. And that might be your next bottom too. I can't speak for you, and I'm not going to preach to you. But I want you to come and join me, because there's a better way. I'll tell you more about my story, you know, and it just goes on. Because there are people out there who will drug you as well. Some of the psychiatrists, they will give you unnecessary drugs, and they will drug you. And those will hijack you because they're turning that light off. It's just a jump to another addiction, you know, and another change in perception. And they were giving me those pills for a while. Then when I got off of those, I went back to drinking. And then I got off of the drinking again. And finally stayed in the program. It took me a long time. I was one of these in and out guys for a period of, what, 6 years or 5 years. I was in and out where I would go back to drinking. But thankfully I stayed away from the hard drugs. You know, that was a big step. And I got to tell you, it is hard to go and enjoy being drunk when you're thinking about AA, when you're thinking about the program, and thinking, damn, man, you know, I racked up 6 months or whatever of sobriety, and I'm drunk now. I'm drunk. And I really turned into a cold, hard, nasty drunk after a while, where just drink or two, and I turned into like some cold-blooded robot, where all I wanted to do was just cause pain and misery in the world. You know, your bottom doesn't have to be the gutter. Your bottom can be anywhere, you know. Loss is loss, but you don't have to let that bottom keep getting lower. I guess after that, I'd like to just real quick just talk about gratitude a little bit. And because being grateful, it's very difficult to feel sorry for myself if I'm being grateful and feeling gratitude for something. So I would like to say that I am grateful for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am grateful that it exists, and that the men and women of Alcoholics Anonymous are always there with a hand outstretched. You know, it's a big deal. I know this was maybe a little bumpy. It's the first one, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. All right, and that I've been on the bottom, y'all. I've been down there. Jails, institution, and death. So I'm going to do this say maybe 3 times a week. And if you have a topic that you would like discussed, then I will try to discuss it as it pertains to my experience and what's in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That way we can maintain a journey towards sobriety together. Okay? You're not alone. If you type into Google Alcoholics Anonymous in your city, you will find meetings. You will find an intergroup office that will have an interactive menu of the meetings in your area. They are held all over, at all times of the day. You can find a meeting. You can find people who are like you, like me. So thank you for coming by. I appreciate you, and in sticking with the general format of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm going to go ahead and recite the Lord's Prayer. Hopefully I'll do it correctly. How does it go? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, for yours is the kingdom, power, and glory, forever and ever. Amen. Right? I'll have to look it up, make sure I did it correctly. I usually just say it along with everyone else. It flows then, you know, like you know what you're saying. Again, I want to thank you all for coming by and let you know that you are not alone, okay? So, be good to yourselves, because you're worth it. And I dig you. You live free and punch hard. I'll see you next time.